we explain it in terms of similarities as well as differences between it and Romanticism. And such, I think, is to really show how far these two movements, literary and artistic movements, have appeared during an era which is almost close, and each one is in reaction to the other. Here we are going, in this lecture, we are going to study a major figure from the the Victorian era, that is Alfred Lord Tennyson. Alfred Lord Tennyson is to be considered the best among his own contemporaries as being the embodiment of the Victorian era. Maybe he is better than any other romantic poet in explaining, in showing the features of the Victorian era. He, throughout his own work, is to show all the features, all the characteristics that mark the Victorian period. What's more is that he seemed being an embodiment to his own age, not only to his contemporaries, not only to the time he appeared, but also in relation to the modern readers. Whenever a modern reader is to be to have an idea or to have a light about the Victorian era, it is Tennyson himself who is to be the embodiment of his own age better than anyone else. What's more is that it was during his own time, during the Victorian era, it has been said that the most famous, three famous living persons during that era were Queen Victoria, the Prime Minister William Gladstone, and Tennyson himself. To say what, he was so famous, he was so well known, he was close in importance to Queen Victoria, and you know that Queen Victoria is significant. Even the age has been named or called by her name, yet he is almost close to Queen Victoria as well as William Gladstone, the Prime Minister at that time. The three famous living people. Of course, he is to be the spokesman of the Victorian age. Queen Victoria trusts him a great deal to the extent that she made him the literary spokesman of the Victorian era. Whenever there is a speech or there is something related to the age, the spokesman is supposed to be Tennyson himself. He has also been given a surname, which is a Lord Byron, to indicate his own significance and to indicate his own importance to the official members as well as in literature and the literary heritage. So he was the spokesman. He held certain important official positions. He got a certain sense or duty to represent the features of the Victorian era, but together with such a duty of depicting the new movement, he also has a tendency towards the natural landscape. He has actually, or seems to have an unaltered tendency towards nature or the natural landscape. And nature was among the themes of his own poetry, actually. But of course, it's not in the same tendency as well as appearance in relation to the Romantics in this case, because he, like most of the Victorians, was objective, and he has a duty of depicting the new era or the new age, which is the Victorian age. His personal life is very much to have a great lurid history that is related to he himself and to his own family. What's more is that the his personal life is very much interesting and essential in understanding his own poems. This is only because most of the themes of his own poetry is to be taken from his personal life. There are certain themes, like, for example, madness, like, for example, murder, avarice, misery, social climbing, marriages. All these themes are recurrent in his own poetry. Recurrent means repeated here and there into his own poems. And all those poems are due to a personal experience, or an experience that is close to him in relation to his own life. Concerning love, concerning the marriages he got, concerning murder. One of his own uncles has been exposed to murder. Concerning madness, it seems that his own father suffered a great deal from mental disability, or a kind of madness that affected the life of his own sons, as well as he himself. Actually, Tennyson is the fourth son among 12 brothers, and some of them are to have the same disease of their own father. And the father, who was a rector, a religious person, is to have this mental disability that affects, of course, his own life and the tendency towards using such themes. Tennyson is a very prolific writer, and we mentioned what we mean by prolific. It means he has many literary productions, many literary works that are to be produced by him. Not just one or two poems or such a number, but he has many literary writings. A prolific writer he was. And those writings are landmarks in relation to the history of English literature, special in general, and Victorian literature in particular. He have masterpieces, actually, like, for example, Ulysses. Ulysses is a very important poem. He has, for example, the In Memoriam. In Memoriam, actually, a very long poem written by him, and it was a book in conduct, you see, as if every element, every aspect, every level of the society is to be tackled in this poem. You can find politics, you can find religion, you can find social matters, many matters or many levels of the society have been tackled and discussed in this poem, In Memoriam. And also, in relation to other poems he used to deal with themes. But this poem, In Memoriam, which is a very long poem, tackled all the levels of the society. And this shows the greatness, actually. This shows the great ability of Tennyson to handle all those matters within one literary conduct or within one literary work. The poem we are going to study from him in this course is Crossing the Bar. Crossing the Bar is also a very significant poem. It is also to indicate the ability and the greatness of Tennyson in showing his own themes. Well, it is a masterpiece right here. Yes, Benin, you have something to say?
Yes, Miss. Excuse me about my attendance. I can't take it because the door is knocked, and I was be forced to go. Come
you mean at the lecture of 8:30?
Yes.
So you are going to be present here, isn't it?
In section A, if you don't mind, Miss.
You are going to be present right now, isn't it?
I have another lecture, but I was forced to go out, and when I come, the lecture was ended and can't take my attendance.
It's okay. It's okay.
I was wanted to explain my...
Yes, it's okay.
Thank you, Miss.
Crossing the Bar is a very significant poem, and this poem actually is to show the attitude. It has been written actually in 1889 and it shows the attitude of Tennyson towards death. Actually, it is a metaphorical meditation about death, in which he sees, the speaker in the poem, which is supposed to be Tennyson himself, sees death or comparing death or the process of dying to gently passing the cross or crossing the sandbar between the coastal area and the wider sea. Which means what? He describes the process of dying or death itself to, in a metaphorical way, to the person who passes from one side into the other of the sea, from the sandbar to the other part of the sea, as if making a journey, a voyage throughout the sea, and he is to cross or to pass this sandbar in order to go to the other parts of the sea or the ocean. Of course, in a sense, the poem argues that death is a fact, and actually it is a kind of comfort. It is just like peace, it is just like sleep, it is just like having a sense of comfort. And this is, as we have mentioned, because of his own religious belief. His father was a religious person. He himself lived during the Victorian age, into which religion forms a very important and a very significant taboo that is not supposed to be violated. So it is because of his own Christian or religious belief that there is life after death. So since there is life after death, so a person is not supposed to be afraid of dying. Death, according to him, is going to be just like a comfort. So the major theme of the poet is about death, and the idea that the speaker in the poem, which is Tennyson himself, is to say that death is similar to, or dying is similar to, crossing a sandbar and going to the other part of the sea or the ocean. Of course, being on the sand, being on the coastal area, being on the land is different from being in a journey in the sea, or even trying to reach the other part of the sea. Of course, the sand or the land is something which is what is stable, something you know about. And the other part or the other side is something which is completely mysterious, unknown. Okay, I can go into a journey, but I don't know, or I cannot expect what is going to happen or what are the things I'm going to see. It is the other side of the sea. What is on the other side of the sea? I don't know. It is something unknown. It is something mysterious. So the process of dying, according to him, is just like a comfort. It's just like passing from what is certain into what is uncertain. But he knows that in the other life, in the other part, there is another life. In the other part, there is an afterlife. And this is because of what? Because of his own religious belief. He was a religious person. And in Christianity, or in the conduct of Christianity, there is life after death. So why I'm afraid of death? I can go in order to see this other life and to enjoy it, actually. So the speaker, in this case, who wants to, he also wants to do what? To do the matter easily and quietly. How is that? He wants to die gently. He wants to pass quietly, without mourning, without being weeping or being sad or shouting or crying. He wants to die quietly and gently, without fear, without being horrified, without being afraid of death. Why is that? Because he is reassured, because he knows for sure that what? There is life after death. And he knows that what comes next is a meeting with God. If we are going to die, then we are going to go to the afterlife, to the other life, in which the face of God is to be there, in which he is going to see the face of God, or to face him face to face. So I'm not afraid, because there is something great awaits me. There is something which is wonderful that awaits me, to see the light, the heavenly light. And the heavenly light is what? The face of God. So he wants to pass quietly, without being horrified, without being afraid, waiting for such a beautiful, actually, thing, meeting the face of God. So, Crossing the Bar, which has been written in 1889, it has been written shortly after the death of Tennyson himself. You see, Tennyson was ill. He was very ill. He was sick. He got a fever, and he was almost aged. He was in advanced years. He was at the age of 80. So when he got a fever, and he was ill, he was very ill, and he's old, he felt that what death is close to him. He felt that he's going to die due to this illness. But actually, in reality, he recovered. Even though he recovered, but the idea of death still haunts him, still connected with him. That's why he wrote this poem, even after he has recovered from illness. And what's more is that he died actually shortly after writing it. He also asked the members, the publishers, to write this poem at the end of each volume of his. Whenever you publish a volume, place this poem, Crossing the Bar, at the end of the volume. Of course, placing it at the end of the volume means what? The finality, the end of the volume. And it shows the finality of he himself. So, metaphorically speaking, when he places it at the end, it means this poem is to show his end, to show that he has ended, just like the volume of his own poetry has ended. It foreshadows his death. It expects his death, the death that really happened after writing the poem in a short period of time. So, the speaker pronounces the day had done. This is, of course, at the beginning of the poem. At the beginning of the poem, he says, sunset and the evening star, to indicate what? That he actually compares his own life to the day, which is an extended metaphor. That is to be compared for death itself, for his life itself. How is that? The day starts with the sun rising, and then it is the mid of the day, the climax of the day, and then we have the sunset, which announces the end of the day. The end of the day means the death of the day. So just like the day starts with rising of the sun and then the sunset of the sun, it's our life, or our life is similar to that. Death itself is similar to that it starts with the sun rising and then ends with the sunset. So the whole poem is a metaphor, and the beginning of the poem is also an extended metaphor about this idea of death. He tries to show that death is found everywhere, and it is to be compared to such things in order to make the reader accepts death and not to be afraid of it. So Crossing the Bar then is really about death and how far he himself is to foreshadow the death of the poet. Also, within the first stanza, he says that the voices are calling me. There are sounds, there are voices that calls him by name, as if my time has come. It is the end of the day, which means death, the sunset, which means death, and they are calling by my name. It is me who is going to die, and they are calling my name so that I'm going to die. As if the idea of death is ripened in his mind. It is due to his experience of illness that the idea of death is grow bigger into his own mind, and now he is supposed to do what? To live with it, or to accept it, or not to be afraid of it. He is supposed to be not afraid of it, because he lived this experience when he was ill. He was close to death when he was ill. So in short, this intense poem, this short poem, is to reflect the personal experience of Tennyson himself. Everything is at the end, according to him, because he's old. He's at the age of 80, and being old is different from being young. No longer he can enjoy the life. No longer he can experience the activity of life in the same way as when he was young. What's more is that he's ill. Maybe he is also to be characterized by loneliness. So death, then, according to him, is going to relax him, is going to bring him a comfort from all the miseryness that is to be found around him. And that's why he justifies the idea that death is a comfort, and the idea that death is not bad. It is going to take me back to another beautiful thing. In this case, the poem is not about death, actually, but it is also about the accepting of death. You see, the tone of the poem, since its major theme is death, so the tone of the poem is supposed to be sad. Yes, it is sad, but at the same time, the tone is mellow, it is gentle, it is peaceful. Why? Because here, the presentation of the idea of death is not negative. Actually, it is positive. His attitude towards death in this poem is not negative. It is positive. How is that? He's not afraid of it. He is not. He's asking those around him not to be sad or to be mournful or to be sad for saying farewell or goodbye to him. No, it is because he accepts death. Once you accept something, then you are going to no longer be afraid of it. Actually, you are going to await for it. He's waiting for it because he's in need of what? Comfort. And that, according to him, is comfort. That's why death, according to him, is not an end, but it is a transition. If you think of death as an end, then you are going to be horrified, you are going to be afraid, you are going to be angry maybe. You can't stand the idea. But if you think of death not as an end, like Tennyson, it is a transition, then in this case, you are not going to be afraid of it. It is just what? It is just a short sleep, and then you are going to be awake. It is just a way into which, or a transition into which you are going to pass from this life and go to the other life. And what's more is that the other life is better than this life. If he goes to the other life, then he's going to see the face of God, he's going to have rest, he's going to have an eternal life, eternal, everlasting, which is in contrast to the life he's living now. Now he is what? He's old, he's aged, he's sick, he's lonely, he's unable to enjoy the activities of life. But there, he's going to be young, he's going to live forever. He is not going to experience this experience he's in now, which is what? The experience of dying. Because in the other life, there is no death. It is something which is what? Everlasting, it is eternal. There is immortality there in the other life. While being here, he's exposed to the idea of what? Of mortality. So, since he got this conviction, which is a religious conviction, actually, he is what? He is to wait for death, to consider it not an end, a transition, and he is waiting for it peacefully. He wants it to happen peacefully, not to consider it a tragedy or a heartbreak or something fearful. No, he is going to wait for it because it is not ugly. That is beautiful here, according to him and according to his belief and conviction. So, in this case, he says at the beginning of the poem, which is also a metaphor, that the sunset and the evening star and one clear call for me. There is a voice, there is a sound that is calling for me when to put out to the sea. So don't be moaning of the bar. When I'm going to leave you, when I'm going to start my journey, don't be sad, don't be mournful when I'm going to go into this journey. So, in relation to this, the evening star and the sunset and the end of the day, as if the bell is going to be rung when he says in the stanza after that, twilight and the evening bell, and after that, the dark. You see? You remember earlier when we talked or explained Gray, we mentioned that the church is to ring bells at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. And the bell in the morning is different from the bell in the evening. To indicate what? Because the bell in the morning means or announces the start of the day. And the bell in the evening announces the end of the day. So my bell is ringing now. But what kind of bell? It is the evening bell, which announces the end of the day, announces the end of my life. Once it is going to ring, then darkness is going to come. You see? This is in reality. Once the bell of the evening rings, the sun sets and the night comes, darkness. And for him, metaphorically speaking, the bell means what? That once the bell is going to ring, then I'm going to go to the darkness. And darkness here, according to him, metaphorically speaking, means death. Because death is characterized by darkness. So my bell is ringing. My bell in this case is to announce the end of my day. Just like this poem is to announce the foreshadow of his own death. So when I'm going to embark, when I'm going to go, when I'm going to make my journey or my adventure, don't be sadness in your own farewell. Then in the poem's final lines, he is going to say that, or he is telling us that he is going to meet at the end of this journey his own pilot. The pilot here is with capital P because it refers to, also metaphorically speaking, it refers to God. You know, the pilot in reality, if we have to talk about the literal meaning of the word, the pilot means the one who guides you. And in the poem, the one who guides the poet or who guides us is what? God, the eternal power that looks at us in this life and it or we are going to meet our face in the other life. So my pilot is going to be seen by me face to face in the other life. So I'm going to make the journey. I'm going to make the exploration. I'm going to start this adventure. And of course, having this adventure, it needs no ticket. No ticket is necessary according to him. So the poem is about confronting reality, confronting the truth. Reality and the truth here is death. Death, according to him, is imminent. It is inevitable. Inevitable means what? That you cannot avoid death. Death is a fact. It is something inevitable. It must happen. Whether you like it or not, whether you accept it or not, whether you live hundreds of years or less, you are going to face death because death is inevitable. So the poet chooses to, rather than being horrified, he chooses to accept death because it is a fact, because it is a reality, and he should confront this reality. He should confront this reality and accept it, actually. So not only the poem is about death, but also it is about the acceptance of death. And when he says that the voices are calling me, then this is an announcement that it is time for him to die. This is clear because he's old, he's aged, he's ill, and he felt this experience. He was in fever, he was very ill, he was very sick, and he was about to die. Now he's recovered, but the idea did not depart him. Still kept the idea of dying, still kept into his own mind. But he tries to justify it by accepting it, by making it made quietly, by considering death as a comfort or a short sleep, and such darkness is for a short while or period of time. Later on, he's going to see, instead of this short darkness, he's going to see the eternal light, the everlasting light, which is the face of God. In this case, the poet is not sad, is not moaning, is not afraid, but he is peaceful, mellow, and quiet in welcoming such a visitor, which is death. In fact, also, this journey is from earthly to spiritual. He tries to show his religious conviction that this journey is from what is earthly towards what is eternal, towards what is everlasting. So what is earthly does not last for long. It would end. So why I'm going to stick to it? I'm going to the thing which is eternal, which is everlasting, the thing that is going to last for a long period of time, which is what the other life, the afterlife. So he is to welcome it because there is a benefit in it. You are going to move from what is earthly into what is spiritual, into what is everlasting, and to look forward for another kind of life. And that here is a means that is going to enable you to see your pilot, to see your guide, to see the God, to see the Christian God. Without death, then you are not going to see God. Without the existence of death, you are not going to see God or to face the face of God, to see the face of God. So he welcomes death. It is a means, it is a way, it is a transition that is going to lead me to the face of God. So without it, we are not going to be able to see God or the face of God, the divine power that guides us and helps us in this life and in the other life as well. That's why he is not afraid of it. It is just a means. It is not an end in itself, but actually it is a means towards another end, which is the spiritual life. It is a kind of knowledge, and without this kind of knowledge, without this kind of experience, it's not available on living. And it is going to lead to the reunion with God. So the poem insists that there is no reason to fear death. It is to insist that you are not supposed to be afraid, no reason for your being afraid of death. Instead, it argues that people should take solace in the rather paradoxical thought that death brings with it not an end but a new beginning. This is the hope in the poem. That's why, though the poem is sad, but it is still mellow and peaceful and gentle. Why? Because death, which is a very paradoxical idea, death is not going to bring an end, rather it is going to bring a new beginning to us. A new beginning that all of us are supposed to be aspiring to. And especially the poet here, because the poet here is old and aged and there is no need for him to stick in this life. He's also ill. The poem consists of, you remember we defined it earlier as a stanza of poetry that consists of 4 lines, and they are supposed to be rhyming as A, B, A, B in each, of course, stanza. The meter in the poem is to have this tone of finality. It is short, and the lines are going to move from one line into the other. There are so many metaphors in the poem, as we have mentioned. The beginning of the poem, the reference to the pilot, the reference to the God, the idea of darkness, all of them are to show or to express the main aim of the poet. The final lines in the poem says that I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar. And this final line, there is an allusion. Allusion with A means a reference from outside the text of the book. This allusion is to have a hidden meaning. Firstly, we are told that the speaker hopes to see his pilot face to face if he is going to cross the bar. Pilot here is a direct reference to God. That's why it is an allusion. A reference to something or someone from outside the text of the poem, which is here a reference to whom? To God. And this reference should be known to all, the readers. And of course, all of us know what is meant by God as readers. So it is to show this allusion, it is to show the peculiar, the strange, actually, way of Tennyson's dealing with religion. Because Tennyson, at a certain period of time, he was religious. Then, at another period of his own time, he was disapproved with the Christianity and with religion, or maybe the corrupted figures in the church. So sometimes we see him disapproved with the religion or Christianity, while certain other times we see him use his ideas from religion and from Christianity to talk about, like in this poem. Since God is considered to drive the world and all the living things, then we see the pilot as a reference to the divine world in the poem. There is a divine world in the poem, which means a religious reference right here. Also, the use of the word crossed is interesting. Just like, it has the same pronunciation of a cross. It also have the same pronunciation of a Christ. So it suggests the word crossed. It suggests crossing the bar to go to the other side of the sea. It also might be a reference to Christ himself. Crossed, Christ. So if then we find another allusion to the poet, to religion and the afterlife. So crossed might mean crossing the bar, might mean Christ, might mean God, might mean religion and the afterlife. So the poem in this case ends with a positive note. There is a positive note right here that the poet is both accepting the finality of death and hoping to meet God in the afterlife. He accepts death, he admits it as a fact, and his own justification is because that he's going to meet God in the afterlife and to live this spiritual life, which is quite better than the earthly life. Because he's seeking immortality rather than the mortal life he himself is in now. He's old, he's supposed to die, but in the other life there is no death. That's why it would be better for him than this life. Okay, let's stop right here. Do you have any question about that? Okay, so since there are no questions, I'm going to call your names. Zainab Munir, Zainab Maitan,